Perfect. Hi, everyone. You've already heard the note there that we're going to be recording this. Just bear with me for 1 second. It's the first time I'm using Zoho Meeting. So I'm just going to make sure our recording starts and then we'll dive in. Yeah, it looks like we're good to go. I also can't figure out how to make my face not giant, so I'll try to lean back a bit as we go through. All right, so we've got about 18 people here and ready to go. I think we can dive in. 19 now. Great. All right, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen with you. All right. So welcome everybody to the first of our series of Zoho Analytics webinars. Today we're going to be focused on unlocking the power of your data. So we're just going to cover the basics today. We've had a lot of feedback from our customers that Zoho can be a bit difficult to understand, especially at the beginning. And so we're going to try to make this as easy as we can for you and build on your knowledge as we go through the different webinars in our series. So quick agenda here today. We'll start with some brief introductions from our team. We have a couple of house rules just to explain how things will work today. We'll talk about navigating Zoho Analytics and where you can find everything you need, how to figure out if you've got your Zoho Analytics account already. And then we will dive into two main presentation points in our webinar today. The first one's going to be using the pre-made reports that we have already created for you and already exist in your account. And the second session is going to be how to build your own reports within Zoho. So by the time we leave today, you should feel pretty comfortable using what we've made and also playing around a bit on your own to find information that's really specific to your business that could be helpful for you. We also are going to finish up with some suggested tasks. I used to be a teacher. I love giving homework. You don't have to do it, but I recommend that you dive into Zoho as soon as you can after our call today while the information is fresh. And even if you just play around for 15 minutes, it will be really useful to get your hands in the tool and see what questions come up. Lastly, we'll talk about what's up next and what you can expect from us over the next few months and during this year. Okay, so first, some quick introductions. I'm Jess Gaspari. I see a lot of familiar faces in our attendance list today. Sorry, not faces, names. I might see your face later. And so I'm on the customer success team and have already worked with many of you, whether it's through onboarding or just your regular account questions and feature requests, things like that. I used to be a Tourwriter customer myself, and as Sajan knows, I was not the biggest fan of Zoho Analytics, so I promise you, if I can figure out what I'm going to show you today, you can get there as well. Then we've got Sajan. Sajan, feel free to say hello if you want to unmute yourself.
Sure. Yeah, my name is Sachin. I've been with Tourwriter for like 10 years. Initially started as a customer support personnel, and then the last few years I'm working as business analyst. So whatever changes you need in the product, so I just review them and then pass it on to the dev team to get them developed. Yeah, that's me.
Thanks, Sajan. Sajan will be very modest about his capabilities. I like to refer to him as the Zoho Analytics Ninja. Although neither of us are, I would say, total experts in Zoho, Sajan definitely has more knowledge than I do and is really great at understanding if something's not connecting correctly or if there's just a small tweak we can make on our end so that your account functions perfectly. So he's going to be here to help me today because I'm sure you'll have questions that I can't answer, which is normal. And he's just going to give us a little extra support along the way. Okay. So a couple quick things. You'll notice that everyone on the call is on mute. We're going to leave it that way for now. You can submit quick questions through the chat. You'll see that we already have a couple of messages coming through. Sajan's going to monitor the chat as I go through some of our examples today. And if we can answer that question easily, we will do that in the chat. Otherwise, excuse me, we will have set times for questions today. So if you want to ask something to myself or to Sajan, just raise your hand. You should see a little icon at the bottom of your screen with a little hand that you can click. And we'll make sure that we unmute you. Just so you know, in our testing, it looks like it will turn your video on. So you don't have to put on your video, but just an FYI, in case you want to keep that hidden, it might prompt you. Okay. So we are going to start with some basics, and that is how we navigate Zoho Analytics in general. So firstly, we've got a wide range of customers here on the call today, and we do offer two different types of subscriptions at Tourwriter. One of those is the Pro, the other one is Premium. If you're a Premium user, you already have Zoho Analytics included as part of your subscription. If you're a Pro user, you can very easily include this as an add-on to your existing subscription, and we can help you with that. I know we've got some customers who are struggling with Zoho and some other customers who are curious about Zoho. So depending on which bucket you fall into, don't hesitate to reach out if you've got questions around how to get access, how to add it to your subscription, or if you're just unsure who on your team might have your access. Generally, we give our customers one login for Zoho for your account. And that's because, as we'll see later, it's very easy to share your reports within Zoho, so you may not need more than one. So if you're an existing customer and you've been with us for a while, there is a possibility that somebody on your team already has that login. If there's any confusion at all, just let us know, and we'll check out your information for you and make sure you're ready to go and set up. All right, so we've got quite a few new integrations in Tourwriter. Zoho is one that we've been working with for a while. And I just want to make sure it's clear to everybody before we begin that the information from your Tourwriter account maps to Zoho Analytics, and it only goes one way. So with some of our other integrations like Xero, for example, that information feeds back and forth. That's not the case with Zoho Analytics. So you don't have to be worried about updating any information or rearranging information in Zoho. It's not going to affect what you have going on in Tourwriter. That map goes through once a day. So as you start experimenting with your information, you might notice that some things are missing. If you've added them in the last few hours, they will be visible the next day. So if you see any issues there, let us know, but you should be scheduled for once a day as you start in your account. We also have 4 types of analytics reports. What I see a lot with our customers is that we generally use one of them, which is really useful. But I'm going to show you some other examples today just to remind you that there's a lot that Zoho can do. You may be more comfortable starting out with a basic table, and we'll have a look at that today. But just be curious and see what else you can pull out of there. The information has been designed in a way to make it as useful for you as possible. Okay, and then as I mentioned before, so your reports can be shared in a variety of ways. Generally, you can export any of the information that we're going to go through today. That can be in Excel, CSV. You'll see there's some other options as well. But you can also create a link to your report that you can share with your team members. So if you've got a report that is accounting specific, you can share just the link of that report with your accounting person. If you've got a head of sales, for example, who manages your travel designers, you could create some reports around their sales statistics and, excuse me, any big trips that they've got coming up or big sales that might be down the line, and you can share just that information with that person. So there's a lot we can do here, and we're going to go ahead and dive in. Sajan, how are we doing on the chat? Do we have anything coming through so far? Do I need to pause?
No, nothing
Okay,
at the moment.
great. Perfect. So we're going to look at the pre-made reports that we already have for you in Zoho. We'll look at 2 reports specifically that I find to be particularly helpful. And then just so you know, the next slide that I have here is 4 questions. So we will take a pause after we look at these couple of points and give you time to raise your hands. So I'm just going to stop sharing my screen here and take you over into our staging account in Zoho. Okay. All right, so this is our staging account. What that means is we at Tourwriter have a few of us in here who are experimenting and testing things. So you may see some information in my account here that doesn't show up in your account. That's normal. Also, when I run some of our reports, the information might look a bit funny because, you know, Sajan and I are essentially making it up for testing purposes. So just keep in mind that when you get in here, of course, the information will make much more sense. Okay, so we're going to start over here on the left-hand side. Similarly to how Tourwriter works, you've got a menu here to take you through a couple of basic options. Today, we're going to focus on reports. We'll drop into the data section briefly just to explain a couple of things. And then dashboards, I think we may cover in another one of our Zoho sessions. For me, it's more important that you get some experience just recreating some reports first, and then we can talk about designing a more elaborate dashboard for you. You also have Ask Zia. I have not tried this before. Sajan, I'm not sure if you use Zia often, but it is a way that you can chat with Zoho Analytics if you have some questions. So feel free to try a couple of things with her. It does give you some suggested questions here as well. Okay, so what I want to show you here is this viewer button. This caused me a certain amount of frustration when I first started using Zoho. I couldn't figure out why I couldn't do things. And that might just be because this viewer button is turned on. So the first thing to do when you're in your account is make sure this is turned off so you can actually save your reports and create and save your information easily. So keep that in mind. If you're in your Zoho account now, you can go ahead and take care of that. And then we're going to go into our reports section here. Okay. You have the ability to create some different folders in this area. So you can have a set of reports that you use for your financial measures, a set of reports for your suppliers, for example. You can really make this section whatever you want it to be and organize it in the way that works best for you. What you'll see here in our staging account is just a bunch of reports that we have created. I would say probably only half of these are going to be in your account. The other half are examples of us experimenting. So for you to know exactly which reports are going to be in your account and have a clear understanding of which ones you need, if you go to our Help Center, this is just the first page on our Help Center website. If I search for Zoho, the first result that shows up is a full article that has a lot of the information that we're going to cover today. So you can also use this as a reference. And if you scroll down here towards the bottom, you'll see that this section where we've got standard reports gives you a full list of every report that's within your account, and it will help you understand exactly what that report can be used for. So this is another great place to start and just have a reference so you know where to go to find what you need. Okay, let's go back into Zoho. Okay, so we're going to focus on two reports today. The first one is our supplier details report. Supplier details report. In our presentation, I marked that as number 18. That's what it is on the list in our Help Center article. Okay, so when you're in your account and you open up any of the reports that we have created for you, you're going to see that we've already pre-selected the columns that we think are going to be the most useful. That being said, there may be some information in here that you don't need, or some fields that you would like to see that we haven't included. So when you come into your account, you'll see this full list of columns, starting with supplier name and heading all the way over to the end. You'll see there's loads of information in here. And this is going to be all of the information you need for every single one of your suppliers, all the different types of suppliers we have. And as you see, it's pretty massive. So as I'm scrolling, the last one you'll see is country. Let me head back. So what's great about the reports we've created is you can always keep this base report to go back and reference or run as a fresh report with our criteria. And I suggest that you come up here to these three buttons, which is where you're going to save this report as your own. So I'm essentially going to save a copy of this report. I'm going to give it a new name. And then once I do that, I'm going to show everyone how to make changes to this report, both to add and remove information, and how to organize that information a little bit differently. So I'm going to save as here. Again, that was the 3 dots. You'll all be familiar with 3 dots from your Tourwriter account. Save as. And then what I'll do here is I'll just call this Jess Live Training. I'm going to save this in my reports folder, and then you can also put a description. So I'll put here Jess and Sajan webinar, for example. You're all also familiar with tags. Feel free to add tags to your reports if you want to be able to search for them easily. Okay. So it's that simple and that quick. I've just duplicated the supplier details report, so I can always go back to my reports and find that one that we've created at Tourwriter, but now I have my own version of it. All of this information is going to look exactly the same. And what I want to do now is edit the design of this report. So I'll click this blue button right here. Okay, this is where things can sometimes start to look a little bit scary, but it's actually quite simple. So here on the left, you're going to see all of the columns that have been included in this report, as well as all of the columns, all the information that is available to include in this report. So what you see here that has been ticked is mirrored here in the columns section. If you want to add or remove columns, it's as easy as scrolling through this area. And if you click, for example, the X here, it will from your data set. If I know that I don't want the latitude and longitude of my supplier, for example, that's not useful for this particular report for me, I just click these away and they're gone. Now, if I want to add information into my columns that's not here already, I can either scroll through on the left here and see what's not been checked, or I can search for a specific field. So if I wanted to include that latitude in the end, I can grab it and bring it in. You can move that column around to whatever place makes the most sense. Oh, I've done it twice. And then you can also move any of the fields here as you wish. So you can create the order of how your data will show up within your spreadsheet. Okay, so that's how we insert and remove information from the columns. As I make these changes, you'll notice that there's a blue bar here that pops up. It says click here to generate tabular. And what that does is it allows me to see in real time the changes that I've made. So if I click here, I can scroll through, make sure that I like the order of the columns, and then if there's any other changes I have to make, I can just do that again in the columns section. Okay, now you may have noticed that here under our supplier name, we've got this supplier of cert 36 South. And this cell encompasses a couple of different rows of supplier information. That's because we've grouped by block. So within your spreadsheet, you can already create some condensed data sets depending on what you're looking for. So here I'm grouping by supplier name, which is going to show up here. I can also group by section, which would put that information as a row at the top of the sheet instead of in the first column. So you can have a look around here to better understand the best way to organize this, but it's very easy to just move these back and forth and see which view works best for you. You can also group by both section and block if you want to. Okay. Now, a couple other things that we will have a look at on this page are our filters. So all of the information that's going to come through is managed here. The filters are used to help you eliminate information that's not necessary. And that's going to happen through our filters here. So I like to think of this as the pre-filter for the report. So for example, if I wanted to look for, do we have any dates in here or markup? Let's say, for example, I wanted to filter out particular markups. Whatever field you pull into the filter, you'll be able to decide exactly which options you want to include in this report. So maybe I only want to see suppliers that have a markup greater than 30. I'll just choose those options and only those suppliers will appear. So what's great about this is when you are creating a report for a certain date period, if you only wanted to see sales for Q1 or overall sales for the year, or even tasks that were completed within a week. Using a date filter or any filters here is going to help you to really nail down the information that you want to pull. Okay, so this pre-filter is done. Only these markups will be shown in my report. And now we're going to go into our user filters. So these filters are more dynamic and they function quite similarly to what you would see in an Excel document when you've filtered the information on the top line. So for example, if I wanted to be able to filter by supplier name, I'll put that in here. And what this means is all of this information will be available in my report, but now I've just made it easy to jump to the particular supplier that I want to have a look at. Okay, so I'm going to show you how this looks. We're going to head out to our view mode, and this is where we'll see a bigger version of the changes that we've made and our updated report. So you'll see here that we're not filtering, but we are grouping by supplier name. And then I have my drop down here. So if I wanted to, I could jump to a particular supplier. In this case, we've got Fancy Hotel. Not our most creative example, but you get the point. You can reset that filter here. And then if you're happy with this report and the changes that you've made, you can save it here. Otherwise, you can go back and edit the design as many times as you want to. Okay, so my report is saved. And now what's great about this is as Tourwriter maps into Zoho, if any of my information in Tourwriter changes, this report will automatically be updated based on the criteria and the filters that I've set. Now let's say I want to share this with one of my teammates. Over here, we've got a couple of options. These are pretty intuitive. If you click this button here, you can export this as any format that you'd like to, CSV, Excel, PDF, whatever you want. And then we also have some sharing options here. So you can share this with your teammates. You can include a password if you want to. And if you're not sure which sharing type to use, you can always come back to our help desk article because we've got all of that listed for you here as well. I think it's a bit below sharing reports. So you can always reference this to figure out how to access with a login or without a login, and then within your organization. But as I mentioned, usually one user is plenty. Okay, I didn't put this in your homework, but what I would suggest is when you do come in here and make your reports to share them with a couple of teammates and make sure everything is flowing correctly, make sure they can see what they need, and then determine the best way for you to share this amongst your team. Okay, so I promised you 2 examples. That is our supplier details report. And what we're going to do now is have a look at a different type of report that is created for you here. So you may notice that we've got some different symbols here in the supplier details report. This little purple icon is the tabular view. So this is very similar to what you'll see in Excel. It just creates a simple table. But we have some other options as well. So when we come here, you'll see we've got the chart view, pivot view, summary view, and tabular view. Some customers like to use these within Zoho. Other customers prefer to send it to Excel and then they make their own charts. So what we're going to look at now is the itinerary gross amount chart, which is right here. If we head back to our help desk, you'll see very clearly that this is number 11, itinerary gross amount chart. This is to understand the gross value of your itineraries that have been sold per designer. So this can be a really useful report to see how everybody's doing. Now, as I mentioned, we've got a lot of false information in here in our testing. So you'll see a couple of different designers here, some names you probably recognize. And then over here, we've designed this report to include different currencies that are available within our account. Of course, this can be customized for your team as well. This is how it will appear the first time. But again, if you want to, we can save as, and I'll call this Just Live Training. And then once again, we've got our copy of this report. We can make all the changes that we want. And if we ever want to go back to the Tourwriter report, we've preserved that so we can make as many copies as we want. Okay, so again, we can edit the design. And now depending on the type of report that you've selected, this page is going to look slightly different, but the way that the information moves is exactly the same. So if I wanted to change out the currency for a different parameter, I would simply delete this. And then maybe I wanted to see what was coming up for the different cities that I offer. So very easily you can swap out this information. Again, we can click to generate our graph. and make sure that this makes sense based on what we want to see here. And then once we're happy with this, we can go into our view mode to make sure it looks good, and we can save this again. So there are many different ways to customize these reports based on what you need. I'm not going to go into all of the examples, but I would love to open us up for any questions in case we've got some before we look at the next step. Let's see if we have anything in here. Okay, I don't see any hands so far. So, okay, great. Sam, can you show us what kind of date filters we can use? Yeah, sure, absolutely. So let me think of a good example here to make that clear for you. I do think I have that in another example, but let me show you here. Okay. So let me go back into reports here. And let's say, for example, supplier balance. Let me see. Sam, just give me 1 second. Let's go to supplier bookings report. Okay, this is the real one. We've made loads of copies. I'm going to go ahead and just save a copy here so I don't make a mess in our staging account. Okay. All right, Sam, so, and everybody, within this report, you'll see we already have some dynamic filters here. So I can sort by supplier. I can also go into the start date here. So this is an example of how you'd put the date as a dynamic filter, and you can choose inside the report which dates you want. But if I said, you know, I want to make that section a bit more simplified, I only want to see bookings for 2026 in this particular report. Then here in your pre-filters, what we could do is find the date. For example, let's say start date. Let me clear this out. Start date, oops. And then I think if we do seasonal, Sajan, I might need your help here. I've done this many times and I haven't had this problem. See, Sam, I'm still not an expert either. Let me get rid of this. Sajan, I'm not sure why this isn't allowing me to do the start date. Maybe I've just chosen a bad example here.
Yeah, can you probably save it without adding the start date and then try again?
Take this out?
Yep. First save the report and then add the start date.
That's not letting me delete it. I think that I've done something wrong here. Let me go back to the beginning. Okay, supplier bookings report. Let me close all these extra ones. Okay, this is why I have Sajan on the call. All right, so Sajan, I'm going to save a new copy, right? Okay, I'm going to edit the design. All right. And then my filters. Okay, so the filter that we've added in this particular report is the itinerary total sales. So I want to delete this one. Sajan, I'm not sure why that's not deleting for me.
It showed some error message actually.
It's just not going away. I wonder if it's my computer that's just not responding. Sometimes this happens. And probably because I have so many things open in the video as well. All right, well, I can at least tell you, Sam, I promise you this works. I've done it 100 times already. That when you add the date in here, what will happen is it will open up a field where you can see all of the different dates that are available, and it will let you nail down into the year, the quarter, or the month as well. And it's really helpful for creating these reports, especially around supplier payments that are due or incoming payments that you need to receive. And it helps you isolate the time period that you need to focus on. It's really helpful in the busy season.
You need to select individual values. You have selected range tab. Yeah.
It's very possible as well that we don't have good information in our example, which is why it's not allowing me to do this, because I've run into that as well, where we don't have real information in here. And sometimes the information is not available. Okay, Sajan, I'm not sure. Maybe we can take this offline and just triple check this report, but I've used this report many times and have not had any issues with it. But we'll take it offline and check it out. And Sam, what I can do is, as a follow-up to our call today, I'll do just a little video recording of exactly what this looks like, so you have a better example for when you're in here on your own. Please don't be dissuaded by Zoho, because I have not managed to make this work. I promise you that most of the time it does what you need. Okay, any other hands up or questions? Perfect. Okay, great. Thanks, Sam. I'm just going to write down here to do that little video with the date filter, because it's really, really useful. And I want to encourage everybody to use that. Okay, I've got it as a takeaway for myself. All right, so now, since I don't see any other questions or any other hands, we'll head back into our presentation really quickly. All right. Now we're going to talk about building your own reports, which, this depends on how comfortable you get with Zoho. I think that for some people it comes more naturally than others. And when you build your own reports, you're going to see that the starting point is blank. And so it gives you a little more freedom and flexibility to build exactly what you need. So we'll head into the data tab to understand where you find what you need to do exactly that. We'll take a look at a document that I've created to help you as you go through this, with Sajan's help, of course, and his input. And then we can look at building 2 example reports before we finish up for today. And as we did before, I'll stop at the end for any questions that you might have, and we'll see how far we can get. All right, let me go back to sharing my account. Okay. So as we saw before, I'm just going to close these reports out. There we go. As we saw before here on the left, the reports are where your existing reports live. You can have a blast in here looking at everything we've created for you and play around and get comfortable there first if you want to. Then when you're feeling a bit more courageous, you can also create your own report, which you do just by clicking this blue button down here at the bottom. Now, before we click that button, I just want to explain a bit about how your information from Tourwriter is getting transferred into Zoho Analytics. All of that information exists here within the Data tab. So these tables that you see here with the little yellow box on top, this is essentially your raw data that's coming through from Tourwriter. What we've done in the reports is we've already manipulated this information for you to make it more useful, and we gave it a label so you know exactly what it's good for. However, when you're creating your report from nothing, we've got to figure out where your information lives in Zoho so that you can pull the report with the information that you need for that particular task. Now, some of these labels on your data are really straightforward and intuitive, but others are not as clear. So what we've done is created a cheat sheet for you, which is here. And within this document, you're going to see that you have a list of all those data tables that we just saw in Zoho Analytics. So if you're not sure which table you need to create your custom report, you can come here and have a look through. We're in the process of including a link to this sheet in our help desk article if it's not there already, but we'll send this after the call as well. I like to have this in a Google Sheet because it means you can download it and make it your own. So if you know there's a table that you're using very often, or if you've got particular questions, it's much easier for you to record all that information in here, and then you have your own customized cheat sheet to help make Zoho work better for you. So here you're going to see those tables. We're not going to cover query tables today. This is a very advanced feature that we may cover in another call. You can just ignore this here. I even put this is for advanced level reporting. And then here in the fields section, we've also made it very clear where fields in Tourwriter may have a slightly different name from what you see in Zoho. So if you're ever confused about which information you need to find what is relevant, you've got these two tabs you can always reference, and those should help you to find a lot of clarity there. So let's say, for example, I want to create a report. Okay, let's say, for example, Tourwriter is saving me so much time with all of our automations and wonderful integrations that I now have time to figure out when all of my suppliers' birthdays are and pre-plan some birthday emails to them, for example. What I would do is come into my report section to create my report. Let's say I want to do a table so I can very easily see the supplier name and their email address. Nothing too complicated. So this is where we need to know which table to use in order to get that information. So what I need for my report is my basic supplier information and their emails. So if I'm looking through my cheat sheet here, I can see that there is a table for all of my contact details, and that includes my agents and my suppliers. So I know from having a look through here that the table that I need is the minimum contacts detail. I know this seems like a lot of information, but you'll find once you start creating your own reports, you'll be using a lot of the same data tables again and again, and this will become much more familiar to you. So this is the one that I need, my minimum contacts detail. So what I will do in my report is select my table, just scroll down. These are all in alphabetical order, minimum contacts detail. All right, so I've now chosen the raw data set from the Tourwriter to Zoho Analytics feed that has exactly the information that I need to generate this report. Okay, this looks exactly the same as our pre-made reports. I just have to populate all of the columns myself. So sometimes I find this to be easier if I know exactly what I want. It's a bit more intuitive for me to add what I need rather than delete what I don't. So for this one, I'm going to keep it simple. In my columns, I want my supplier's first name, and I want their last name. I'm going to want to see their email address so I can get that birthday message sent to them. And then I want their date of birth. Now, I recognize you may not have all of your suppliers' date of birth, but you know, I always really valued that relationship management, especially in the travel industry. And if you do happen to have this information, of course, there's a lot you can do to strengthen those relationships. So I thought this would be a fun example. So here we have our first name, last name, email, and date of birth. This is all very clear to me. If I wanted to group by section, I could include, you know, any of the fields here in one of these two blocks or sections. Maybe if I wanted to see, I mean, all female suppliers, for example, or if I wanted to block by the type of supplier, for example. You can really put in here whatever you want. And then you'll see that you've got your agent suppliers or your provider suppliers listed here very clearly, and anything you put in your group by section will be shown here at the top. Okay, so maybe I think this is too much detail. I don't need that. Let's generate this again. And so with that little generate button, it's really easy to see how this is coming together, and then you can make changes as needed. Okay, so I'm going to go to my view mode. And I can see here, this is perfect. So these are my agent suppliers. This is when their birthdays would be. These are my other suppliers. These are when their birthdays would be. And then I can set up auto emails to send whenever it's necessary. I could save this if I want to. Supplier birthday example. Okay. All right, so that's one example of building your own. I know that this is not the most useful example, but many of the really useful reports are already created for you. So getting a little bit creative today in what you can do. Let's say, for example, now we'll do one more. I have a cheat sheet. I wrote down already what we were going to do today. Let's say we want to look at supplier payments that might be overdue or where we've just got a remaining balance, and we want to understand what payments need to go out. So I'll go back to my reports. Okay, so we've done a tabular example. Now I'm going to show you a summary example, which is this blue icon here. So this will do a little bit more for me in terms of the grouping of the information that I'm going to generate. If you only feel comfortable creating a table, that's totally okay. I would say just focus there for now until you get more familiar, and then we'll go through a couple more examples of these in our next webinar as well. Okay, so for my supplier payments, I don't want the minimum contacts detail. This is all contact information. I'm going to need a different data set to pull this information from. So if I come back to our help desk article here, I'm going to look for supplier payment details. Oh, I'm sorry, I went to the wrong. Here we go. If I look on our cheat sheet, I'm going to be looking for our supplier payment details data set. So within this data set, you're going to see all of the information for supplier payments. You can see the due date, the amount, the itinerary that it's connected to. What we're going to do today is just look at upcoming payments, but this report is also really helpful if you need to double check against your accounting to make sure everything's been paid correctly. It's also great if you've got loads of payments coming up in the busy season and you want to group some of those together. This will help you stay really organized when the time comes. All right, so we're going to go for supplier payments detail as our set. Let me go back here. Okay, so my base table is my supplier payment detail right here. And click OK. Okay, so same idea. We're going to pull over the columns that we need, and then we can summarize by different data points to help us understand what's happening per supplier, at least in this example. So I'm going to start with supplier name. I need to know who I'm working with here. So I'm going to put supplier name as my grouping. And when I put a field in group by, that means that for all of the payments I need to see for this supplier, they will already be grouped together. So this summary report is very similar to the tabular report. It's just that it's already grouping for you instead of listing it as a second step. Okay, so already I can see all of my suppliers are listed here. So that's great. And now I want to know what to summarize. So I'm going to add in the amount that is due to that supplier. I've got the amount due and the, here we go. So the amount is what I owe them, what the total cost of any individual booking was. Okay. The next is the amount that I've paid them. And this is where we can start to see some discrepancies in what's been paid versus what is due. Now, this is useful for me, but it may be that some of these payments are far in the future, and I don't really want to focus on those. That's not an issue. I just want to see what's due now. So if we search for due date, you'll see we have a due date here. And we also have, I thought we had a due date minimum as well. Okay, we'll go with due date. That's fine. So here, if I go for due date, and I'll pull this in here. And then we can see how many payments are due for each one. That's not the field that I want. I wrote this down incorrectly. I apologize, everybody. Let me find the one that I need. So there's a field in here called due date minimum and due date maximum. And what's cool about that is you can see the earliest payment that is due to your suppliers. And that'll help you see really easily, obviously, if that date is today or in the past, that payment is overdue now. And then you'll be able to see the earliest date for all of the other payments that need to be made for each of those suppliers. So I think I wrote this down incorrectly. I apologize again. Let me see if I can find it here. Sajan, am I nuts? I know that this is in here. Where's my due date minimum? It's here. That's my fault. So I've added the due date, and here within the due date, you can do the maximum date or the minimum date. So I'll click the minimum. And then what we see here is this is the earliest any of these dates are due. Obviously, this is an example from a long time ago. We're not that overdue on our bills at Tourwriter. And here you can search for, again, as I said, anything that's due that needs to be paid that maybe was missed somewhere along the way. And you can also see when the last payment's going to be due, if that information is useful. So if I'm happy with all of this information, I've got a really clear indication here of what needs to be addressed. What I can do is go to my view mode, make sure this looks good. And then I could export this into Excel, for example, and send it to my accounts team, or even out to my travel designers and say, hey, have a quick look, see what needs to be paid that we may be behind on. And I could save this as okay. All right. And then that's saved forever. So you can always come back and edit this if you need to. You can update any of the information, add fields, remove them, and this report will live there for when you need it. All right. Those are the two reports I wanted to show you today. As you can see, there are endless possibilities with the information that you can generate within Zoho. So I suggest starting small, getting to know our reports first. And then when you've got some pretty basic reports that you want to try on your own, head into creating reports by yourself. So we'll pause now for some questions. Let's see if we have any hands. We do have one hand from Lucy. Lucy, I'm going to unmute you. Lucy, I've unmuted you. It's just taking a second. It looks like for your microphone to turn on. Hey, Lucy, you're unmuted, but we haven't heard anything from you yet. It may be that your microphone's not connected, or you have to give some kind of permission. If it's okay with you, Lucy, I'm going to let you work that out for a second, and I'm going to let another person in here who has their hand up. Okay. That's Alfie O'Brien.
Hi, can you hear me first?
Yes. Hi.
It's Aoife. Irish
Aoife. Sorry.
I don't have a connection from Tourwriter to Zoho. I've requested access, but it's always grayed out. So I don't know how to even get into here to do this. I'm struggling with.
Okay. I would say that we can either hang around after the call and have a look together quickly, or we can set up just a quick call at another time and investigate that with you. Because when you say grayed out, I think it'd be really useful for us to see your screen in a screen share, if that would be okay with you.
Perfect. Whatever suits you best.
Okay. I think we should finish up just a few minutes before our scheduled end time today. So we could do it here on the call if you like.
That would be fantastic. Thank you.
Great. No problem. I'll just put you back on to mute for right now. And then Lucy, have you been able to connect your microphone? It says that your microphone is connecting, but it looks like it hasn't happened yet. I'm going to disable you and re-add you and see if that works. All right, we'll give Lucy one more second to try to come through. Does anybody else have questions? I'll check the chat and the Q&A. Okay. All right. Obviously, I'm making flubs in Zoho even now, and I've been in there for quite a while. So don't be discouraged. There will be things you're looking for that might still be a little bit difficult to find, but we're here to help you. So as some of our next steps, let me show you what I've got here for you. I have some tasks, as I mentioned, that you can use to practice what we've done today. The first thing is to save the Help Center link that we showed you. I'll make sure everybody receives that by email. So you can always reference all of those pre-made reports. Save the cheat sheet and really make it your own. Like I said, you'll find that you use the same reports again and again, or the same data tables again and again. And so that's a really easy way for you to record that and maybe make notes for anybody else on your team who might be in there in Zoho with you. Of course, check your access, and for anybody who needs help, don't hesitate to reach out. We'll make sure that you get set up correctly if you're not already. And then this is the real homework. I would ask you to save one of our existing reports save a copy, and make it your own in whatever way that looks like. So removing, adding columns, playing around with the groupings, and previewing what you've done. So get in there as soon as you can and get some practice. Absolutely export a report or share it with one of your teammates. Make sure that that link is working and you feel comfortable with it. Any of those reports you make that you're going to access very regularly, you can also just save that link as a bookmark. So you can go straight into the report that you need and bypass entering into Zoho Analytics. And some extra credit is to create your own report. So if you've got some time and you feel comfortable, I really encourage you to try it out, especially with so you can have another look at which data sets will help you with which information. If you have any questions at all, or if you need help with Zoho, you can reach out to us at our support email address. If you've got my email address, you can also email me. It's jess.gaspari, but the whole team's here to help you through our support address. And you can also just go into the Let's Chat button in your account, and we'll make sure that we follow up as soon as we can and that you can get into Zoho without any issues. Finally, what's coming up next? So as I mentioned, these are just the basics. This is to help you get familiar with the tool and get in and using it. What we plan to do over the course of this year is to help you prepare some essential reports for specific timelines throughout the year. Now I'm just realizing as I'm doing this that we've got some customers in here from New Zealand and Australia, and that your busy season will probably be different from our American and European customers. So I'll have a chat with Thomas about maybe rearranging some of these calls for you to make sure they're applicable to where you actually are in your year. But we're going to go through some essential reports for the busy season. So that's going to be reconfirming suppliers where you've got lots of bookings in 1 month or 1 week, checking that all your payments have been received and everything has been paid on your side, and anything else that's just going to make the rush of the busy season a little bit easier for you and put your mind at ease that you haven't missed anything. We're also going to talk about using your information to negotiate better rates. So the great thing about Zoho is you can see everything, including exactly how much money you've spent at particular hotels or with certain suppliers throughout the year. And that can be a very strong negotiation tool for you if you can find that information easily. So we're going to go through that together. And then we'll finish up with some reports that are going to be really helpful to having a look back over your year to see how everything went. We'll probably do that before year end, so you can get comfortable with those reports before you need them. And then it's not a bit of a mad scramble. But if you need help with any of these things ahead of time, please just let us know. I'm also going to send everyone a survey after our webinar today to ask for your feedback. This is something new that we're trying at Tourwriter to give you a bit more support and open you all up for questions and make sure that we're doing the best we can to serve you. So we'd love your feedback on how today went. And if there's any other topic that you'd like us to cover, whether it's with Zoho Analytics, certain product features, or any of our other integrations, we'd love to know where else we can help. So please don't hesitate to give your honest feedback there. And that's it for today. So if we don't have any other questions, I don't think we do, we can go ahead and wrap things up for today. And you'll hear from us very soon with a recap, all of the resources you need, and that feedback survey that I mentioned. So thanks so much, everybody. Have a wonderful day or night or afternoon, wherever you are, and we'll be in touch soon.